Alright, what's up? Today we're going to answer a question, because first of all, it doesn't require me to think, and second of all, it's an important question because it touches on something that's been discussed a lot recently. And this is the question. In your most previous video, Zombies and Democracy, you say that if you move more to the right in the political spectrum, you will run into fascism. By this, do you mean that fascism is an exclusively right-wing phenomenon? I've heard arguments that claim that the idea that fascism equals the right is wrong, since many fascist states like Italy, ruled by Mussolini, had quite socialistic policies. Can you explain and expand on this subject? I'm asking because I'm not too educated in political theory. First of all, several people, I get questions like this all the time, and sometimes I get really, really detailed, complicated questions about political theory. I'm not a political scientist. I've never taken any classes on that subject. I claim to be an amateur historian, but I do not claim to be an amateur political theorist or scientist of any kind. So just remember that, so that so that people don't think that I'm something I'm not. But I will answer this question. But people aren't going to agree with my answer, and this is an important thing to remember about fascism: is that there is not a perfect explanation of what is and is not fascist. There's a lot of arguments amongst academics and political theorists and whatnot about what is and is not fascist. But I think that that is a better explanation of fascism than anything else I can give you. Because the way I see it, the fascists will use anything to gain power for the party and for the leader and for the state. Other forms of dictatorship usually they use the same methods to gain power. Monarchies usually use some sort of divine right as their excuse for power. Military dictatorships, obviously, they just take over with the military. Things like that. The fascists will use whatever they can use. Okay, so some fascists might use religion. Okay, a lot of Nazis were really anti-Christian. Okay, but they used Christianity to bolster their movement. Okay, they'll use race. Obviously, the Nazis did that. Mussolini did that too, but he wasn't as hardcore about the Jews, but he was about the superiority of the Italian people, because his whole spiel was he wanted to rebuild the Roman Empire, right? So you have to understand that the fascists will use whatever it is to get more power, or whatever they need to do to get more power for the state. So that's important to remember. So just because somebody like Mussolini uses socialism, even though Mussolini didn't call it socialism, my faggot friend Arthur, even though Mussolini didn't call it socialism, I know, even though Mussolini didn't call it socialism, he called his things corporatism. It's the same thing. But what you have to remember is that they're using socialism as a means to gain more power. So just because someone is a socialist doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to become a fascist. A fascist might use socialism, okay, but it's not the same thing. And you have to remember that, because people like Rush Limbaugh and all these people have been saying that all these new socialist policies by people like Obama are a sure sign that we're moving towards fascism, and that's not necessarily the case. Okay, so that's my answer to that question. This was a short video. I'll do something else later. I'll talk to you.